Now, the first thing we're going to do with our content polls, we're going to go back to that movies content type. And we're going to start working with dates and times, and then we're going to do category polls, right? So let's see how to poll by date and time. So if you are here on the back end of dotCMS and you'd like to maybe sort by a release date, we can see now we've got 7/10/2018, and then we click it again, and now we've got a descending order. Right? Each time you click that, you are changing the automated query builder that is here. If I click Show Query right now, that's release date descending. If I click that release date again, now it's ascending, and you'll see that the query just puts release date with no descending on the sort because the default is ascending. Or we could put movies.release date space, ASC, if we want it to be very literal. But I do want it by release date descending. All right. So I've now clicked on it again. I've got my release date descending, and now I can go ahead and copy that query. However, our first item on our agenda is to work with dates and times. So what if we wanted to pull a date range or something like that? Then you can actually put, so let's say I just want to get July, right? I can come down here to the release date field. Now notice what I did. I went ahead and did the I clicked on the advanced search here so I could see the rest of the fields that have, the show and listing, right? And this makes them, searchable. So if I come down here to release date and I hover over this, it tells me the different formats I can use to then filter by date. Now, if I was going to filter the last 2 weeks worth of movies or something like that, or the last month, then, I would probably just use the date format here, which you can see in the example is 12/15/2006. And then there's a space, and then there's a capital TO, and then there's a 2-digit month, day, and year again inside of brackets. So that's what we're going to do right here. So if we went and put a single bracket and we put 07/01 2018 space TO, right? And then I'll just copy this and then put 07/31 2018, and then I will just simply finish it off with a bracket and then come down here and click search. Now if we looked again at our query builder, you can see it's actually providing that date range search here, right? So it builds it all for you. The only thing we would do in reality is we would go ahead and make those variables, right? So if we shortened up on our range, let me say I only want maybe from the 15th to the 31st. So if I put a 15 here, I'm going to have 2 of these movies disappear. They're not going to be part of the search, and it's only going to leave me with that last movie, right? So let me bring it back. 01. Bring those other 2 movies back, and now we're getting the last month's worth of release date movies. And obviously those release dates are fake, but Okay, so I'm going to click Show Query, and we'll go ahead and copy this query straight into text, some, whatever editor we wish. And then maybe I will increase this in size. So it's just a little bit. We'll take it to 20. Okay. So now the first thing I'd like to do is to make this a little more human readable. This is our for each loop, but let's go ahead and show how to do a set and set the .content.pull here so that we can then, or at least the query, so that we can then make this a little more human readable and not so long. So we can set movie query equals, and this very first, inside of our first parentheses, that's our first parameter. So I'm just going to copy all that out, put that right here inside of double quotes since it's a text string, right? And then now that I'm doing that, then I'm going to take this variable and put it right here, all right? But anytime you're actually referring to a velocity variable, you should refer to it in the following way to make sure that, one, it never spits out, the name of the variable. If the variable happens to be null, it'll do nothing. And also so that if you are parsing a text string and the variables in the middle of a text string, it actually always gets interpreted as a variable and will then render whatever value the variable has. So I'm going to put that in curly braces, put the bang and the curly braces, and this is how you always refer in velocity to a variable. Okay. Now we could also, set movie list equals this entire thing, right? And then here we could just do movie list, right? So depends upon how much you want to do, but I don't think we need to do that. So I think it's easy to understand in this way. And so let's go ahead and go over the for each loop and the .content.pull. So we're going to say, because we name this object whatever we want right here on the fly, so I'm going to say for each movie, each of the objects that I'm pulling is a movie, all right? And then I'm going to say .content.pull. I'm going to get this little movie query because the .content.pull, if we look at the documentation, we just go to documentation pull content, and then here we've got pulling personalized content, pulling displaying related content, paginated pull of content, pulling multilingual content, pulling and displaying content, and that is our .content.pull, right? So there's a whole bunch of different methodologies that we can use. And it's got the different methods there. So for each, news and .content.pull, you've got a query that for the type of content that you're trying to pull, a limit on how many that you want to pull, and the sort. So it just takes 3 parameters in the regular .content.pull. Okay. So all the documentation is there, and we will just kind of move on since you already know where that documentation reference is. So we're saying a discrete number 10, but if you want to pull all movies, how would you do that as an integer? You put 0. And 0, I know that sounds a little antithetical, but 0 means all content, that you don't want to limit it. Now, if we're going to do that, then maybe we want to pull paginated instead of this pull method, which we will do later. So we'll just leave that for now. And we only have 3 movies. So. You could also here, if we wanted to also sort by title after our movies.release date, we could then put a comma separator and put movies.title. And in that case, maybe we would want to do, ascending, which we can also just leave it blank, and that'll automatically be ascending, right? So you can put, whichever you want to sort be the first sort, and then the second sort, and then you can comma separate a third sort if you wish as well. I only have 3 movies, so not real much need to do that. So then inside of your for each loop, what is the very first thing you should do? Is no matter what content you're pulling here, you should make it editable to your content publishers so that you aren't going to give them any permissioned access to your code, obviously, but you are going to give them access to be able to edit each movie that you are pulling. So we want to give them a little edit button. So how do you do that? You put a little macro here called edit contentlet. Movie.inode. Okay, remember I said inode, each of these little movies has a version, and this will actually get the latest version and allow them to pull. Now, the only reason we're actually using inode is because this is a very old tool, and it used inode way back whenever we first created it, and we just haven't really had much of a need to change it. But you'll find most of all the other tools will call by the identifier, use the identifier. Okay. Then the next thing we want to do is provide something that'll be our movie listing, right? So we need to start iterating over something in our movies. If you are not sure about what your velocity variables are on your content type, you can always go back to the dotCMS. You could look at, the title, the URL title, the release date. You can go back to the, open this up in a new tab, and you can come over here to types and content types, and then we could search movie, MOV. It instantly finds us movies, and then we could look here at all of the variables, which you can see are in parentheses and in gray, right to the left of the label. So we have title, camel cased URL title, release date camel cased, unpublished date, a poster, a screenshot, a genre category, tags, and description. Now we're just doing the listing, so we're just going to do something very, very quick. We'll put maybe inside of an H3. We'll put movie. And of course, we're going to put the proper velocity variable, bang in curly brace, dot title, and our curly brace. And then later, we're going to turn this into an href that will lead to our detail page, which we did start on last time. Then maybe we would put the release date. So I'll do italics here and do movie.release date. Which we saw, once again, it's right here. Release date is camel cased, right? You can see it right here where I'm moving my mouse. And I see a question, why the use of the $sign there? The $sign specifically so that we don't, if we leave the $sign out and somehow we weren't very good webmasters and we made release date non-mandatory and it was null, if we don't put the bang, then it will actually print $ movie release date on the page if there's a null value. So the bang actually says, if null, do nothing, right? That way your pages never look ugly. They may look blank, but they won't look ugly, right? So that's why the bang. Once again, the curly braces are there so that if you are doing some sort of, if you have nested, I want to grab a text string and only truncate part of it, and then I want to call the velocity variable within that, it never gets confused with the rest of the text that's around it. It always gives you the value of the variable and never gets considered as literal. That don't take me as literal. Grab my velocity value, and this says if I'm null, do nothing on the screen, print nothing to the screen. Okay. All right, I'm going to finish this off with a break between that and my next item. And another little trick here in velocity you can do, and it'll count, starting with a number 1, it'll count each loop through the velocity for each loop. So I can do velocity count, period, space, and that will count each item in my list. All right. So now I can go ahead and I have two choices. I can either grab that code, this code, I can copy and paste it directly into a simple widget on my page and just drop the code. But I think it's always better to use a file, save this as a file, and then parse the VTL file. So I'm going to save as. I'm going to save it into desktop here, and I'm going to call it now, if you're on a PC, you want to make sure that you're saving with all files selected, and then you can name your, your file .vtl, and it will respect that. I have to zoom out a little bit. I'm super zoomed in here to be able to save. I think I've got to go to screen preferences here for a second, so sorry. Or can I drag it? Yeah, to my other screen. So I'm able to save. All right, I just really zoomed in to try and help you guys be able to see my screen in larger fonts. So all right, I saved that as movie listing to my desktop, and now I'm going to come here to my site browser, and I'm just going to call this folder training. And then here I'll drop a page here in my training folder called movie listing. Once again, just select regular page asset. And I will use a 2-column the side nav and save and publish. Okay. So I'm using my Quest theme here. I'm on my page, and now I want to parse that VTL. I've got a page to put my movie listing, but I'm going to use a bit of a best practice here. We already last time we put a little quick sample, a movie detail to test our URL mapping. This time we're going to put the movie listing VTL. All right. So I'm going to right click new and upload this file. And I'll choose that off of my desktop, movie listing, and save and publish this. Now what I can do as a best practice now why do we want to do that instead of just dropping the code right on the page? Well, what if I accidentally give permissions to the entire page and this, this directory? I give people access to pages, and then somehow, somebody accidentally permissions them to my VTL file as well. Then, I really don't want regular content publishers to have access. As a matter of fact, what we do is we, for all of the VTL files that we actually use on the demo site, we abstract it here under application and VTL, which we would never permission anyone to this directory. What you can also do is actually abstract it to a completely different host and make a VTL file there and put the file right there. Okay. So that is something you can do to make everything completely abstracted by permission so that no one can accidentally get access to your files. So you can make one, and if you're doing multi-tenant work, so let's say you have 100 hospitals or 100 real estate, websites, or whatever it is where they're all pretty much the same and they're just skinned differently, then you don't have to create the listings for those hospitals or physicians or anything twice. You just simply create it once, and you can use it on 100 or 1,000 different sites, and you never have to change it. And that VTL file should be smart enough to also point at local CSS classes that are on each host, refer to the host variable, and be smart and dynamic to automatically know what host they're on, and then pull local skinning files or local CSS files that are expected on that host in a certain location. So lots of reasons to abstract your code away for reusability, right? So I'll switch back to my demo.dotCMS.com website, and then back to my movie listing page. Now that I've uploaded this file right here in that VTL file, I can go to my movie listing, and we have a tool here. So I'm going to switch to edit mode on my page. And by the way, if you ever want to know where you are, you can copy your page path and then just paste that into an incognito window, and that'll give you exactly where you are on your local host. So if you ever are not exactly sure where you are, you can copy that and it'll tell you where you are on the path. So I am going to click this little plus sign here. And in addition to adding content, you can add widgets, right? So if I add this widget, there is a Vtl Include widget. The Vtl Include is best practice so that you don't have to, type in, .parse this VTL file. You could do it manually, but, there's really no reason since we include a VTL parser. So you just say, I want a VTL, include. So I'll say, movie listing widget. And then I'll browse for that VTL file, which we put under training. And I'm super zoomed in here. And I've got my VTL. I am too zoomed in. I'm going to have to zoom out quickly, guys. This is a little too much. System preferences. That will help me a bit. Okay. Now I can see things on my screen. Sorry if that makes it a little harder for you to read, though. Okay. So I'm going to click on movie listing and then save and publish, and that's going to parse that VTL file for me. And as long as I've done my code right, then it's going to show me those fields that we were parsing using our velocity. All right. And then if I need to make an adjustment to that VTL file, you can see this little tool right here inside the containers. It says movie listing.vtl, and then I can step right back into the code from that file. Or what I prefer is you can use the Webdav protocol. So here I can go right to log into my server using my favorite text editor and edit the files there. Now soon we're going to have drag and drop, editing, and something that's a little more modern. Right now it's only Webdav, but we are currently working on some even better improvements here. But if I look at editing through Webdav, how to make a Webdav connection, it's kind of like FTP. It's just an HTTP protocol, so we can go right to that server, gives you the format for it, and also recommends. We look here at our doc. If you're uploading via Webdav, whether you're on Windows, you can use CyberDuck, you can use other third-party Webdav clients. I happen to like that one because it works on both. The CyberDuck works on both Mac and PC. So if you wanted to get it for Windows or get CyberDuck for Mac, you can do that. Okay. I am going to log in to this server via Finder. Although there are some limitations with Finder, I am willing to use it just for the convenience of not having to install third-party software. The bad thing about Finder is that it likes to store twice, and this is just Finder. It'll create a zero byte version of a file first, and then it'll go back and actually upload the file, to the server. So that can sometimes cause, whenever you're uploading lots of files, that can end up causing issues. But so if you do find any of those issues, use CyberDuck, something that's a little more of a dedicated Webdav client, which they maintain and update all the time. But for my simple purposes, of editing a few files, not dragging and dropping thousands of files, I find Finder is good enough. Okay, so I'm going to step right into, I'm on the server, and I might have done that a little bit too fast, so let me go back to the actual connection. I'm just going to my local host, the server that I have running locally, but the format here is /webdav, and then whether you want to automatically publish files that you upload, that would be live. You could put working, if you just want to save files that you're uploaded, or if your user you're setting it up for only has save. And then the one refers to the language version. So I want to be able to look at all the files in English and upload the English version of my VTL file as well. So that's why I am using those parameters to log into the local server. Right? Okay. So once I do that, then I can close my movie listing in my text wrangler and then open it up right on the server itself. And now you can see that I'm in volumes1 demo.dotcms.com. I'm actually on the server. So if I wanted to change this to an H2 and see some blue highlighting around those movie titles, then I can just simply file and save, then refresh my page. And now I've got H2s around those titles, right? And we'll cover some date formatting here so we can look at our date a little bit nicer in a little bit. Okay. So we've achieved two things. We have worked with we've created our first, kind of a velocity pull, and we've also worked with dates and times to pull the last month's worth of movies with the little date range.